I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section. Now remember, given the payday, has it been accounted for? Okay. 610B. That was the mandate. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Bring up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows centered below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome back to our Fire Engineering Podcast, The Command Post. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my teacher partner and best buddy, Chief John Salka. And we've got another great topic for you today. I think John thinks as well. One of those things that just pops up when we're talking, usually to visiting and getting caught up. John, we just had our big day for you, getting your driveway, getting new blacktop on your driveway. That's a huge deal, man. That's a huge deal. That's like paving a runway at your house, as long as your driveway is.
It's quite long and it's quite expensive too, but we'll manage.
I heard there's a rumor that Air Force One has it as an emergency, landing area in case they have to set down.
Yeah, that's right. And for the space shuttle as well. Yeah.
Hey, buddy, we just finished our FDIC advisory board meeting in Maryland with David and Diane and the team, and I'm telling you, every time we do it, it's exciting. It's exciting to talk about. Bringing the conference together, John, we've been doing that. You've been doing that for a long time. But I'm telling you, a lot of new instructors, a lot of new programs. And it's kind of exciting to see some of the new guys and gals, the future all-stars, as we say, coming up. They're like you and I way back when we're like, well, someone gave us a chance. And now we're looking at them going, this is pretty cool.
It is, and we're getting to the point in our careers and in our lives where you see that. If we were in any other industry, the same thing would be happening. If you were in the insurance industry, or if you were in the construction industry, or where you are, you'd be noticing, hey, there's some new people in the office here. Hey, there's a new vice president, or whatever it was, and we're seeing it, and we're fortunate enough that we're involved in the writing and the teaching end of the fire service, not just performing, So we get to see the guys and the gals that are like us, that are shooting to do that as well, not just to work, not just to be firefighters or EMS, but also to teach it and talk about it and write about it.
Well, and we've talked about this plenty of times. There was a time, this is going to date us a little bit, where you and I've said this plenty of times, like I said, where you had to get in your car and drive to see John Salka, John Norman, or Alan Brunacini, and Tom Brennan, and pick up the magazine. Now there's so many different avenues, so many different apps, video platforms, social media. I will say that I know we got a show coming up. We're going to talk about this, but our Hump Day Hangout. But it's exciting, John, to scroll through the social media apps and see all the different videos. Guys they're popping doors, they're punching holes in roofs, they're working nozzles, and these young guys and gals are just dialed in. And it's like, we're back. It's like we're back to hands-on training. We're back to, it's like the leadership has come back and taken over in a great way, and we're doing good things again. I mean, there was a time.
The technology is great because the videos are just great. They're superb. Like you said, you go to YouTube, you go to Facebook, you go to so many different places, and there's so many sites, there's so many people, there's so many training companies, there's so many guys, and there's so many videos out there, and one is better than the next, and of course a lot of guys are wearing the body cams or the helmet cams at work, so you're seeing a lot of good live footage in real time of guys pushing in and making searches and climbing ladders and jumping in windows and doing all the stuff that firefighters love doing. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just, it's, like I said, it's exciting. We took I'll say a little bit of a pause there for a while where I think we were a little bit less aggressive. We always say I think we're a very safe, aggressive fire service. I don't care what anybody else says. The word aggressive is misused, overused, and I did an article on this a while back. John called, are we too aggressive or just using the wrong word? And you've heard me say this plenty of times when we've been teaching. I thank God every day that firefighters are aggressive enough to make the second floor for that kid or get in there after that firefighter or CPR that baby. The problem is, and the word we need to be focused on is reckless. You and I, you'll call me, go, hurry up. I'm sending you a video. Watch this video. What the hell are these guys thinking? What are they doing on it? And it wasn't that they were overly aggressive with their attack. They stopped thinking. And someone became reckless. Reckless is not having a backup guy and backing over somebody or something.
Right.
It's driving too fast.
The other thing about safety and aggression, being aggressive. The other thing about that is everybody's different, and everybody swears by that and reminds you about that when we talk about 1,000 other things. But when we talk about tactics and when we talk about safety and when we talk about caution, it matters who you are. It matters how many people you have on your rig. It matters how much training you have and how much experience you have. All those things matter. So, 3 guys could arrive at a house fire on the same apparatus, and two of them could be completely ready, able, and willing to climb up on the roof or make an interior search or perform outside ventilation or whatever it might be, VES. And one of them might not be quite up to speed. And if he follows those 2 in, they're being aggressive and he's being dangerous because he's not ready. Aggression, aggressive, safety, caution, all those words are variables and they apply to different people differently. Some guys have a tremendous experience in training, tremendous. If you follow them, that they've seen this before, they're able to handle it. Doesn't mean you're able to handle it, and we talked about this before. I made a statement recently. Matter of fact, I wrote an article and it was forget safety, embrace training. Safety is your destination. Safety is the end of your trip. When you have a map.
And I like that. I love that when you say safety is it's not you're throwing safety to win. Safety is the goal. That's your destination. I love that. Go ahead.
Right. And when the trip is over, when you're safe, when you're in one piece and the fire's out and everybody's good, that was a safe operation because now you can look back at it and say, okay, it's good. We're all here. Safety is not the ongoing evolution. It's not the ongoing activities that you're performing while you're at a fire. That all relies on your experience and your training and your capability. Safety is what you're trying to reach. It's the destination. It's the goal.
Oh, and I like I said, I love that. I love that phrase. You've got a million of them, but I love that one. It's so true. It's like, I remember years ago at FDIC, we were up on a big stage, and you said pretty much the same thing. And a couple of people went off. I remember they're like, did he just say, F safety and all this? I'm like, no, he didn't say that. Will you open up your ears and listen? We're so focused on being politically correct with saying we have to all be safe, which that's our ultimate goal, is to keep our guys alive by providing with the proper PPE, the proper training, the best leadership, the best equipment, stations. It's a bigger picture than just a word. Like you said, the and if you looked at, you said the destination, training's got a big red circle around it, your apparatus, the nozzles that you have, your SCBA, your leadership, it just keeps going and going and going. There's so many things that add up to that destination. I don't think you can just say, we have to be safer and just end it with that. It's like, all right, tell me. It's like when somebody says, I don't think we should be doing that. And you and I will always say, well, show me the fire first. Before I can tell you whether that was a good move at that fire or not, show me that fire first, because you can't just paint it with a broad brush. I think you are just so right. The destination is safety. How we get there has so many different stones between, like I said, training. How many times we've seen people in leadership? You just mentioned it. You got a guy or gal that's a senior boss. We're talking Gary Apple or Lisa Reed, right? Anybody would follow them into a burning building in a heartbeat, right? Then we have some other people that are a little hesitant, or maybe They're the ones that aren't into the job, which those are the ones that are kind of scary. This is not about, we've said this before, we don't get do-overs in the fire service. This isn't about you made the wrong pizza. I've said that 1,000 times, go back and make me a new one. We have one chance to get it right for our people, or we're putting our Class A's on and we're going to a funeral. And Bruno used to say it best. At first, I used to get upset, but he's like, I wish it would take, he said, I wish it would take as much time to train our people, like you said, John, as we do to run a funeral. We run funerals flawlessly. Look at a funeral. I mean, and it's a proper tribute for a brother or sister that's lost. I understand. I'm all about that. I've been a funeral chief for a long time. But we hit every mark at a funeral. But what led up to that? What marks did we miss? What did we miss along the way? Now, it's a dangerous job. Stuff is going to happen. I mean, I'm sorry. It's you could set up on the highway the best way you want. Some drunk drives around every cop car, every rig, it still hits you. There's things that that job in Jersey that Billy wrote about, John, that young firefighter is dragging that old woman across the floor, and it goes out from underneath them. I mean, the only way out was back where he came from. But what you said, the training part of it is the foundation. It helps us eliminate as many of those trap doors as possible. The better we are trained, the more into the job you are, the more videos you watch, the more articles you read, the more books you read, the more conferences you go to, the more shop talk. You and I sitting around a kitchen table with people talking. I think the end result, like you said, gets us to that safety destination.
Right. And if you look at, you can use a couple of different other situations to compare, just to try and, illustrate the point of different people based on their experience and their training and how many times they maybe done something. So you have an Indy race car driver doing 250 miles an hour around the track. Not a problem. I mean, obviously there's some element of danger there because of the speed, but this guy's got it down. Well, now go take the guy with the flag. The guy that's got the flag, go put him in the Indy car. Tell him, go ahead, get it up to 250. He's probably going to crash. It's probably a tremendously dangerous thing to do. Why? Because it's a different guy behind the wheel. It's not necessarily the activity. It's not even necessarily the level of danger that it presents. What the deciding factor often between how safe something ends up being or dangerous something ends up being is the qualifications of the person performing the act. So when you have really good experienced firefighters that have a lot of fires under their belt and train on a regular basis all the time, and they have a burn tower in their battalion or in one of their fire stations, they do live fire training and they do quarterly training, and it's all recorded and measured, and those guys are safer at fires than the crew that doesn't do that. Even if they got on a job the same day and have the exact same amount of days, months, or years on a job. So again, I really embrace that phrase. I really embrace that phrase, forget safety, embrace training. Because training, along with training comes experience. Those two factors are 100 times more important to your level of safety and your level of survival at dangerous scenes than, labeling whatever the tactic is, cutting the roof or doing outside vent. You can label that whatever you want, but different people doing it have different qualifications and they certainly have different levels of safety.
Well, and I use this to really basic it down, if you will. I know that's not the right grammar, but it's like two different people on the end of a nozzle during a drill. One's going to know what they're doing. The other one's going to get hurt because they don't. I mean, it's very simple. We've seen it. It's like the same. There's 50 different people around that nozzle during that training session, and the one guy screws up, doesn't hold it, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it all comes down to the train. Now, real quick before we move on, how many times have you said, though, because I want some of our viewers to understand this, you don't have to work in the 18th Battalion. You don't have to work in Stockton, California, a great fire department, Wichita, Kansas, another great one, Louisville, Texas, whatever, to be great and be experienced. You've said this before about the Marines, about your sons or whatever. You and I have been to a lot of fire departments that just because of the makeup of their communities, they don't have a lot of fires. You know what I'm saying? They don't have, but they're great fire departments. The guys and gals get off the rigs. They're dressed. They have their tools. They train. They know their stuff. They've been through their simulated fires and all that stuff. they can be you can still be a great firefighter. Granted, the experience always helps, but you can still be a great firefighter, right? Just by being ready, by being trained.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you just mentioned all the places that we've talked about, from Wichita to New York City to all places that you've worked in, Louisville, places that pay attention to what's going on, places that put the time into training and developing training, not just training, but developing training, keeping it up to date. New topics come out, new tactics come out, variations come out, VES, VEIS, and stuff like that. That's all important stuff. And places that stay on the cutting edge, they have, regardless of the fire level, regardless of the numbers of runs or workers that they have, which affect your experience. And if you don't have a lot of experience, fire incidents, then you can make up for that to some degree in training. And I've explained that a couple of times with my sons. Both of my sons joined the Marine Corps. Both of them were enlisted men. Both of them, we went to their graduations. And I tell guys, can you be trained and can you be adequately trained with training alone to perform the duties of a firefighter? And some guys in the audience are saying yes, and some guys in the audience are shaking their head no. And the answer is yes. And the Marine Corps proves it. Because you go spend 13 weeks at Paris Island, and you never leave the island, and you never shoot a real weapon at a real enemy. And when they leave, the day they leave, they are Marines, and they're ready to do their duty, and they are well trained. Now they're going to get better when they get more training, when they get some live experience, when they get deployed a couple of times. By far, absolutely. But they're still very able to do it. They're still very able to perform the duties of a Marine with 13 weeks of training only 13 weeks of training under their belt. Absolutely.
Well, so this brings me to one of the things we wanted to talk about with this particular episode of the Command Post is, what a great boss can do for you. And yes, we said the word boss. Aside from, you and I we attempt to be politically correct sometimes, but I think we are. I'm just saying. I think we've in some areas we've kind of gotten to where we're more worried about a title than we are about the actual task. You and I, when we talk about mentoring in our leadership programs and our company officer academies and everything else, nobody walks around with a name tag says, mentor, John J. Salka Jr., I'm the mentor. Nobody walks around saying, nobody has one that says, leader. And, the reason that the departments we mentioned, FDIC, Wichita, whatever, and there's a bunch more, there's thousands of great fire departments like them. So don't be offended if we don't mention yours. I will say this, as much as we all like to hold hands and sing Kumbaya, it comes down to the leadership. It comes down to the boss. It comes down to the one person that steps in there that makes or break the values, the mission, the core values, and the mission of the organization. The reason the FDIC marches their probies and they march them through the academy and they march them out to those firehouses on their first day is because they have a strict academy, that they've had forever. They've had forever that the reason they produce what they produce, you're taking someone who's never been a firefighter before. And by the time they walk out of there, they're doing this, they're there, they show up. I mean, I've seen it personally myself, what you guys produce. That's not because somebody said, let's hold hands and let's talk about how, no, that's because we said, we've got a serious ass job we're doing. We have a serious ass job we're doing. All right. This is a dangerous job. All right. We have to train people to live, to survive, to go home. You can't do that by going, well, don't worry about, is that too hard for you? We have to train hard. We have to be into the job. We've got to have bosses that are willing to go, Salka. And you're like, what? You and both and I have had talked about our mentors, our great mentors that had no problem standing us on our heads, stomping on us when we needed it. Now, I want to just talk about titles real quick, John, because you've heard me say this plenty of times too. Everybody's seen that meme. And yes, folks, John and I know what a meme is on a computer. That meme that says the difference between a boss and a leader, right? You've seen that. A boss yells at you. A leader rubs your shoulders. You and I have worked for great bosses, and we worked for crappy-ass bosses. And we work for so-called leaders that can't find the word leader with two hands, a flashlight, and a seeing eye dog. So I always tell people, you do as well, stop getting hung up on a title. Look for the traits. When you and I, we spend sometimes 3-4 hours in the Company Officer Academy. We put up that slide with Pete Lund's picture. Think of a great leader. a great company officer, what made him or her great? And it goes on and all we're doing is talk about the traits. They were a team builder. They were fair. They were consistent. They held you accountable. They held themselves accountable. It's all about leadership and about being that great boss.
And what you just mentioned is important. And I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to get it before I forget it. What you just said is don't get hung up on a title. And what I really want to remind people is don't start bad mouthing a title. You know, like right off the bat, they're bad mouthing the word boss. A boss does this, like a boss is a negative thing. And if you come work for the FDNY and you are an officer, you're a lieutenant or a captain or even a battalion chief. I got called boss for like 21 of the 33 years I had on a job because I was lieutenant, a captain, and a battalion chief. And a lot of guys will call you Lou. Some guys will call you cap. Some guys will call you chief. But everybody will call you boss. I was called boss when I was a lieutenant for a year, and I was called boss when I was a battalion chief for 16 years. Fireman coming up to, hey boss, did you just ask us to do this? Or did you when I was in Squad 1, on the door of the apparatus, it said, what was it? Yeah, it said Squad Boss, BOSS. It had the word boss right on the door. Boss in the FDNY, and I know lots of other places, is a term that's used. It's not quite the right descriptive word, but it's used affectionately. It's used in a very supportive way. If somebody comes up and says, "Hey, boss, you got a minute?" That's like saying, "Hey, buddy, you got a minute?" It's a very positive word. It's a very friendly word between a subordinate and an officer when they say boss. And I always, I never made a big deal out of it. It never was. Never was really an issue. It never was an issue at all. Nobody ever said, "Oh, they call the officer boss around here." It wasn't even thought about. People just naturally. It just came out of their mouths. "Hey, boss, you in on dinner? Hey, boss, think we can stop and get donuts on the way back?" And I always loved that. I always thought it was a very casual way of being respectful.
Well, and I think the people that pick apart those two terms have more time in front of their phone or their computer than they do on the job. Because
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's the same thing. I know for years when I'd be hanging with Eddie Enright and Ray Hoff in Chicago, I can't tell you back there with Commissioner Roscoe how many people called him Skipper. You'd hear Ray, okay, Skip, which is a military, a Navy, Skipper, you run the boat, you run the Navy. Hey, Skip. And some people, right away, some of the people out there would be going, Skipper, they would think that's an insult. No. And the whole thing, I just say, don't get hung up on a title. If you want to say, well, that's a great leader, you and I've said that, man, that is one hell of a leader. That is one great about. You and I use both those words all the time, but we don't pit one against the other and diss someone for saying the word boss. And it just sometimes on social media, I see that and I go,
and we're
really?
not. And we're not saying just go pick a word, use any word or any term or any title that you want. Go make up a new word for your lieutenant, and you guys can call him that. Hey, Fluffy or something. We're not saying that. We're saying there are some other alternate words that are universally accepted, both in police and fire and EMS worlds. They're universal, like Skipper in the FDNY. Skipper's the captain. You never call a lieutenant skipper in my fire department. There's 3 lieutenants and a captain for every company, So the captain of the company is the skipper, That comes from the Navy. That's more or less a Navy term. And they're all respectful terms. And they're all respectful / sort of friendly. And being friendly is never a priority for a boss or an officer or anybody else. But having a friendly tone is really a very helpful thing. When you are an officer, when you are in a leadership role, having a friendly atmosphere in your firehouse is always very helpful to getting stuff done.
Well, and you just kind of went right into I want to ask you specifically, my good friend John Salka, this question, because we're talking about the boss. We're talking about what a great boss can do for you. You've worked for like a gazillion bosses in the FDNY in your career. You got 50 years in the fire service. You've worked for great volunteer bosses when you were growing up in the fire service. You've worked, what I'm saying? So if you could nail a handful of things here, John, points, what can a great boss do for you? Brian Salka is a lieutenant now, but let's go back to Proby Brian. What can a great boss do for you? If somebody says, okay, Chief Salka, you said it's okay, call someone boss. So forget even we're talking titles. Forget I just want to get that out of the way. What can a great boss do for a firefighter? For a lieutenant, whatever.
From my own perspective, from my own career and my own experience, is they're an inspiration. I loved working with just about every boss I ever worked with. I worked with a couple of guys that were, I'll call them mediocre because they weren't bad guys or bad bosses. But a lot of the guys I worked with were super excellent, dynamic bosses. And they just really inspired the shit out of you. They really, you say it all the time, they just made you really want to do better. They made, you know, like you were being careful. You were doing stuff on tools. You were working with the saw. You were maybe checking out a jack or another piece of equipment on the rescue truck, and you were handling it like you were one of the bomb guys, like defusing a bomb somewhere. That's how careful you were with the equipment, and you were that careful because number one, you knew that the equipment warranted it. That the equipment that you were dealing with was some of it's just guerrilla tools, right? Some of the tools we have are just guerrilla tools, but some of them are highly technical tools too. And also, like you said, you always wanted to make sure you got it exactly right. So when you told them, hey, boss, the rig is good. Well, hey, John, did you get the new jacks? Did you say, yep, jacks are good, everything's good. And when you're saying that, you know it's true. And you know in your heart that it really is true, that all the rigs are checked out, that all the tanks are full, that all the tools are either sharp or not sharp, whatever was necessary for each particular tool. So one thing is inspiration that a good boss can provide to their firefighters, to their people that work for them. And the other thing is they motivate you. I used to watch, and I can name all my bosses, all the different bosses I had in different places. I used to watch them sometimes and they would just motivate you. They would just, like, you would feel guilty sitting on a recliner watching a TV show in the afternoon that you had no real interest in. You sort of walked in, you sat down, gee, what are you guys watching? Oh, it's that movie, what do you call it? Oh, okay. So now they are sitting down, doing nothing, watching a movie that you missed the first half of already. Sometimes I'm sitting there saying, why am I doing this? I should be up doing something else. And when you're working with a really good boss that's inspirational and motivational, you don't even have to think about it. You don't even think about sitting down. That's why I love that. What's his name? When he got the award a couple of years ago, when he said, comfort is the enemy. Comfort is the enemy. When you're sitting around and you're comfortable, that's the enemy. You should be up and be doing something. You should be working on something, improving something, correcting something, fixing something.
Steve Chikarotis.
Yep, Steve Chikarotis. By far, one of the most professional guys that I've ever met in the fire service. And I've met a lot of guys. And
gentleman,
he was an
true
inspiration
brother.
Too, Yep.
Oh, true gentleman, true brother. And I love that you tied, because we always talk about how inspiration and motivation kind of fit together, like gears, that they both work together very nicely. That you mentioned that. I mean, that was me, when you and I both say how honored we are that we received the Lifetime Achievement Awards years ago. But when they interviewed and they sent the interview questions, what motivated you to be an instructor, to teach at FDIC, or to train firefighters? And I said, Jack McCassin, Eddie Enright, Tom Freeman, Tommy Schervino. I used to sit on the edge of my chair and watch Jack McCassin. He looked like a football linebacker, right? Guy had massive hands, and he was just a decorated combat Vietnam vet Marine. And I'd watch this, oh my God, this tough ass guy talk and teach, and he could relate to me. He could relate to Rick. I'd be on the edge of my seat, hanging on every word he said. Eddie Enright, when him and Eddie Enright, I was like, I just was, I don't know, enamored. I don't know what the word is. I just was overwhelmed in their presence because of their motivation, how they inspired me. Tommy Schervino, I posted this before Tommy passed to COVID at FDIC. It was a picture of me and him standing next together, John, during our hands-on training. You guys are right next to us. And I said, this guy, I used to love, I said at the time, I love watching the young firefighters hang on Tommy Schervino's every word, his enthusiasm, his energy, his heartbeat for what we do. And you could feel it, the Tom Freemans, Eddie Enrights, Jack McCassins, Tommy Schervinos, the Ray Hoffs, how much they love the job. And you said something before when we talk about it together about my Lieutenant Bill Allen. I've said this for decades, and I never realized it till later in my career. And it's such a shame, John. I never realized this later in my career. Just by working for him, and yes, I worked for him. He'll tell you we worked together. I worked for him. He was my boss. He was my, just by working for him, you said it already. He made me want to be a better firefighter. I didn't even know it. That's how sneaky those great bosses are. is you don't even know they're doing it to you. They just by being around them, by watching their mannerisms, their command presence, how they train, how they talk to people, how they treat the public, how they treat their superiors, how they, they're not the buffoons, they're not the bitcher downers, they're not the John, I learned so much just by being, you and I have said this, you and I are where we're at today. And I'll just say this, pretty accomplished careers. You and I are where we're at today because of I'll say over 1,000 people each in our careers and influence. And a lot of them were those great bosses, were they not?
Yep. And another thing about great bosses is, and the term boss plays a role in this as well, is so even though I said boss, that term sort of provides a sort of a friendly, respectful, condition between people, right? But it also establishes who is the boss. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's the boss, and I'm the. Yeah, we don't really use the word subordinate, but you are the subordinate. And some people, another thing that some of these more modern leader people get into is, oh, we're working together, we're a team, and all that stuff is true. But know that I'm the boss and you're the fireman. And it's another thing when you do have a good relationship between the officers and the firefighters, like a guy's wife will stop by the firehouse or his brother will stop by the firehouse and they'll say, Tommy, come here. I want you to meet my captain, and it's a personal thing. My captain. I want you to meet my captain, not the captain. Oh, this is Billy Bradley. He's the captain of Ladder 11. No, this is Billy Bradley. He's my captain. I've been here for like 3 years and he was here before I got here. Guys take it personal in a positive way that he's my captain. This is my officer. This is my lieutenant. This is my boss. And that personal connection is another thing that makes familiarity productive. It makes it a productive feature of the team.
That's the ownership, right? You just said it. You just hit it. You hit the nail with a gigantic sledgehammer. You just, that's the ownership. That's my tools, my captain, my rig. That's and I've said this tons of times too. That's that young firefighter at your retirement ceremony in the 18th Battalion saying, I'd follow him anywhere. I'd follow him to the gates of hell with nothing in my hands but a Halligan tool. I'm just saying those things don't happen on accident, and you're a very modest guy. And I know you always walk, whenever I bring it up in class, you walk the other direction because you don't want to hear me say it. But it's a point I like to make because I want more officers out there, John, to be like you. I want more officers out there to be the kind of boss that other firefighters say, I'd follow him or her anywhere. I'd follow them to the gates of hell and none of my hands but a Halligan. To trust you, like we talk about Ray, when guys would go, man, he could take a lot of smoke, he could take a lot of feet, but when you saw Ray putting his face piece on, you were going to get your butts kicked. But there was times where I remember one of my captains, Todd Cervenka, was we're getting ready, we're going to make a floor, and I'm like, I hadn't seen that much fire in a long time. I'm going, we're going up there. And I'm on a nozzle. I remember he kneed me so hard, it hit my tailbone. You ever get that little that vibrate? He kneed me so hard to get me off of the stairs. And I got up there. And before I knew it, I'm like, oh. And he's like, and I look at him. He had done this a ton of times. And I'm like, Rick, just follow the boss's lead. What's the sign say? When all else fails, just do what the captain says.
Right. Isn't that just so easy?
Just do what the boss says. And that's, I had a guy argue with me once at a fire. I was command. I had a battalion chief up in ops, and it's in a house, John, and young girl, I'll just say special needs, was upstairs, and she found a candle. And she was playing with the candle, and she set her bedroom on fire. And she got scared, and she ran all the way down the hallway into her mom's bedroom, into the bathroom, into the big walk-in closet, threw it in the clothes basket, closed the closet door, and ran out. And she went downstairs and laid with her mom on the couch. And all of a sudden, the room upstairs starts rocking and rolling. We pull up. We got fire out the second floor window. Remember this? Fire out the second floor window, and I'm telling the guys later, I'm telling the BC and I'm saying, hey, you still got fire up there. No, chief, we got it. No, you still have fire up there. No, we got it. Guys, you still have fire. We can see all the way up to the attic where we're at. They pulled ceiling. I go, I know. Look around. You still have fire up there. And they're arguing with me. And I get up to the second floor, and the captain says, there ain't no effing fire. And right there, and the door behind them burned off to the bedroom. And I go, what is that? And what had happened was, like I said, you had this fire over here, the original room that they went, right? The moth, they got in there and they got in there and they knocked it and they pulled everything. So so a bedroom over here, when they told, I said, so you searched this whole thing. You searched for people and fire. You searched this whole, yeah. And I go like this, I go, this door was, the bottom of it was melted to the carpeting, the heat, which it was stuck, which means it was never open to that whole bedroom. So I said, not only did you miss a whole bedroom, you missed a whole room full of fire. I go, why couldn't you just trust me? When I said, guys, there's more fire up there, I go, okay, he says there's more fire. Let's go look, guys. Get your tools. Let's get the tick, whatever we're going to do. You had a whole nother room full of fire, and I'm just like, once in a while, just listen to what the boss says. This is not a time,
Most of the time it's a good bet. And to make another point, and to make another point for some of the boss fighters out there, sometimes the boss is wrong. You still should be doing it. You still should be doing it. You know what I'm saying? People, oh, what if he told you to do something dangerous? You know what? Go write a cartoon for that. You know what I'm saying? Because that just doesn't happen. Sometimes bosses do tell you the wrong thing, or they tell you in the wrong way, or they tell you a little bit late or a little bit too early, or they overdo something. All those things are true. But you know what? Just do it. Just do it. The boss is the boss. When he asks you to do something or tells you to do something, that's what you're supposed to be doing. If it turns out it wasn't necessary, then you get a little more experience doing something that you wouldn't have done that day anyway. That's all.
Exactly. And it kind of goes back to the comparison of like that one initiative, a brand new firefighter disobey a direct order of a senior officer if he or she feels it's unsafe. Well, that was written so long ago. That was written for, I'll just say it, the officer shows up for the call that's drunk, that kind of stuff. It's like 2 in, 2 out. Needs to be either thrown out or redone. With the great article, look it up, folks, in fire engineering. And you and I participate in 2 in, 2 out. In the creation of it came from hazmat to the suppression side. The whole you have to be in voice contact with each other. You can't be in radio contact was written because the only person who had a portable radio back in the day when that was designed, when that was put together, was the officer. So you have a $10,000 portable radio. I'm in the hallway. John, you're in the bedroom on the right. Brian's in the bedroom on the left. I can't talk. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I gave you a $10,000 portable radio. Okay, that's good. I could talk to you in the backyard or I could talk to you in Connecticut. You know what I'm saying? But I can't talk to you in the bedroom right next to me. And there's so many.
Another example is like comparing what we do to football, right? Like Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the boss out on the field. He calls the play. You think any of the other players in the huddle say, no, we just ran that twice. It wasn't working really good. No, whatever play Tom Brady says is what they do. Even if they do the play and they lose a couple of yards, you think anybody comes back and says, you see, I told you we should have done that. No, they just roll with the boss. They roll with the boss and do what he says to do. And for the most part, it works out well. And Tom Brady's a great example.
And that great boss, have you ever had that great boss ever come back to you, John, as a BC or as a captain and go, hey, Cap, come here. Look, I know I said this. I was off on that one, man. This one, I didn't, you know what I'm saying? The great bosses have no problem, like you said, admitting, hey, you know what? There probably was a better
option. That didn't go so well. That's right. Yeah.
So right now we should do a show. I think it would be met with silence. We should do another show, John, on the perfect leader, the perfect boss. Let's do one on that, the perfect boss. And you and I will both sit like this.
Yeah, first we have to find one.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're going to sit like this in silence because there's no such thing.
Right.
Exactly. There's no thing. Nobody's perfect out there. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody errs in judgment. Everybody's human. We've heard that before. So before you jump on social media, right? We've talked about this, about, the keyboard commanders. I call them the keyboard cowards. Before you jump out there, and I've never had a problem with somebody saying, hey, Chief Salka, in light of the cancer studies, I wish the guys would have had their face pieces on sooner. You and I agree. Yes. You know what? It's a different fire nowadays. We're burning frozen gas and all this stuff, so on and so forth. Yes. But the hostility towards some of the people out there, the anger, the stuff that people say, the so-called, I'll say this, brothers that just go after people, the horrible, horrible things they say in a video. And some of these guys are from Shittsville, wherever, where they haven't been to a fire in like 9 years. All of us want to be we want to reach that destination, like you said, of being safer. All of us want to do better. All of us want to perform well. Nobody wants to be that crappy ass engine company. But at the same time, learn something, look at it. And that's why I refuse to post anything negative or make somebody look bad, because you know what? Everybody can look at it and go, okay, hey guys, come here. All right, if this was our fire, hey, Captain Salka, if that was our fire, we would have already done that differently. Okay, good. Let's learn from it. Yep. We were supposed to do that from line of duty death reports years ago. Hey, instead of making fun of them, when we do our line of duty death book report, you and I talk about, we tell people, the rule is you cannot go back and make fun, assassinate, talk hard, talk trash about, because that can be us. We need to learn. We need to glean some points off of that we can learn to fine tune our own business, instead of attacking people. So that being said, there's a lot of great bosses out there. And I'll ask you, John, I know I have made plenty of mistakes in my career. There are things I've said, things I've done, actions I took as a fire chief or as a company officer that I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back and erase them. I can't. All I can do is learn from them. I've done plenty of stuff. Like, if you think you're like Mr. and Mrs. Perfect out there, you're living in la la land, and you've done the same. You talked about the same thing. You went, I remember that time, I remember doing this, and I had, I had Chief Callan jump on me. I had so-and-so jump on me. I had Chief Joey D. Joe. Oh my God, he jumped on me, and you love those guys. You love the guys. You love the bosses that jumped on little Johnny Salka, the lieutenant or captain or firefighter. You love them, respect them, and admire them, where other guys would be all butthurt off in the corner.
Right. Oh, it's so true. It's a big, gigantic learning curve being an officer, being a boss of every rank, company officer, chief officer. It's a big, gigantic learning curve. And if you're not making any mistakes, you're really not learning too much. Not that we're looking for mistakes, but every time you're making mistakes, and some of them are just minor. Some of them you're the only one that notices that you could have done something a little bit differently. Nobody even noticed. Guys come up to you, hey, boss, nice job, and you think to yourself, yeah, except for that little thing that I did that I wasn't real happy with. And sometimes you just self-improve, you self-correct. And other times you make a big mistake, and after the job, you're having to get together and everybody's talking about it, and you say, yeah, 48 engine here. Yeah, well, we could have done things a little bit differently. Yeah, it didn't work out so well for us at this fire. And all the guys know it, and you know it. And even though nobody's happy about hearing about it, they're happy to see that you're honest about it, rather than some guys will bullshit. Well, actually, and they try and put it on somebody else or put it on the equipment or something like that,
Well, exactly. And I think one of the things I want to just comment on top of what you said is, before you become so critical of a boss and the decision they made, take a moment to walk even 2 feet in their shoes. You and I have talked about this. I saw somebody make this long-winded comment about an article about 4-person staffing, about the recent fatalities of civilians and stuff. And this person went on about chiefs and leadership, and you should be out there fighting for your, like, who doesn't want 4-person staffing? You got to be an idiot to not want it. Guess what? It's not in our control sometimes. And you and I have talked about this. How many times in that particular case did that person ever stand toe to toe? Had they ever stood toe to toe with a mayor or city manager fighting for staffing? Had they ever been in budget reviews, budget hearings? Have they ever been in there with finance and the budget director and all fighting for it? If you've never done that, yes, you can say, I wish we had more staffing, but don't attack the people that are trying, that you don't know what they're up against behind those doors, man. You have no idea. And are there some cowardly chiefs out there that may not, yes, there's a few. There are thousands that are out there fighting every day for the men and women that work for them to get them the best equipment, the best apparatus, the best tools, the best PP, the best training, and to get you more staffing. If you've never stood there and argued like you and I have for things for your people, then shut the hell up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can sit, you know what I want to hear? I wish more chiefs, would really, I wish all of them, I wish more chiefs would stay the fight. Brothers and sisters, just keep fighting for us. But to start almost referring to them as cowards because you don't think that, really, it's easy to just get on there on your little keyboard and type that they should be more of a leader and boss by going and fight. How do you not know that? I don't know. That just bothers me when people. Company officers.
and chiefs. It's true of all officers of all ranks, bosses of every rank. They have responsibilities both up and down the chain of command. They get responsibilities to their bosses, to the department, to the rules and regulations, to the citizenry, and then they get responsibilities to their firefighters and their crews as well. So I've always said that. It's a balancing act when you're in between like that, And sometimes people are judgmental about all different ranks of officers about why aren't they just like us? Well, because they're not. Because they're lieutenants, because they're captains, because they're battalion chiefs, and they have some other irons in the fire. They have another stake that they have to that they have to deal with. Another person they have to satisfy in this ordeal is their boss. They have bosses too.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think golly, we could do hours on what a great boss could do for you. I think we hit it on the head with what you said with the motivation. I think it's hard to top, John, what you said about motivation and inspiration from that great boss. I think if you're looking for advice, you're getting ready to promote to lieutenant or captain or to a chief officer position, key on the words that John just said. All right. It's about motivation and it's about inspiration and tying those two together. If you're there to motivate your people, inspire your people, if you're inspiring your people, that means you're living a good life. You're a person who has values. You're a person that treats everybody around you like family. You're concerned about your firefighters and their families, their personal life, their successes. You're helping them through some of their failures, if you will. You care enough to train them. You care enough to say the word no. You care enough to mentor. You care enough to grab somebody and shake them once in a while and say, no, don't do that, to keep them from walking down that path where it might cost them a career or a ding in their reputation. Inspiration, that word, John, goes so far. I mean, there's thousands of miles of train tracks worth of inspiration on it. You know what I'm saying? As to what you should be doing as that great boss taking care of your people. Inspiration. Like I said, I was hoping when you said that, I'm like, well, we're done. We can stop talking now. He just said it. Inspiration and motivation. That was perfect. So finishing thoughts, what it takes to be that great boss, or what a great boss can do for you. Finishing thoughts.
You know what? Great bosses that just keep their eye on the ball. Pay attention to what's going on. Make sure you got a good firehouse that's working, that everybody that works there is content with what they're doing. Everybody that works there knows what they're doing, right? They're all well trained and enjoy the work that they do. And then the other half of the job is when you go to work. When you go somewhere, just remember that get the job done. The job comes first, right? And then you take care of your people, and then you take care of yourself third, right? The mission of men and me. I always love that phrase. I think it's a great title of a great book and a great philosophy. The mission of men and me.
About priorities. Okay, so hey, buddy, if they want to get a hold of you, what's a good email?
ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com.
And I'm Chief Lasky at gmail.com. And we thank you again for hanging with us during another episode of Command Post. Don't forget, John and I, with our good buddies Scott Thompson and Curtis Burt, have the third Wednesday of the month at noon Central Time, the Hump Day Hangout right here at fireengineering.com.
Live.
Everything you need is at the top of the menu, the ribbon bar, at the top of what you're looking at your screen right now, unless you're watching this later on YouTube or whatever. Everything you need from FDIC to fire apparatus, everything's right there for you at fireengineering.com at the website. We always ask you we close all of our shows with this one phrase that's very important and close and dear to John and I, and that's, please keep the men and women of our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, never forgetting means just that, never forgetting. Be safe, God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the 5 million, the entire rear section. Now remember, given the payday, has been accounted for. Okay. 610B, that was the payday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Bring up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows centered below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretched, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.